Hello everyone. In this video I will demonstrate instruction on a mathematics lesson plan. The time allowed for my class is 55 minutes. The title or topic of the lesson is the Pythagorean theorem, and the concept will be for students to learn the Pythagorean theorem through different activities. To develop students' cognitive development, a KWL chart will be provided, and it will help students relate material to prior knowledge. For effective, to all their effective abilities, students will work in pairs to complete a web quest and work collectively to discuss and find solutions to real-world problems. And to all their psychomotor skills, students will engage in drawing, cutting, and placing triangles and squares to learn and prove the Pythagorean theorem. Now, strategies to be used include KWL chart at the beginning of the class, which will take about 5 minutes. This part of the lesson will introduce the concept and allow students to reflect on prior knowledge, and for me to understand what they want to learn. The lesson, which I will give a quick example on what I expect students to do. It will show students the different steps on finding the Pythagorean theorem and how it's used to solve right triangles. And the final activity would be for the students to discover the Pythagorean theorem. Students will work in pairs to discover the Pythagorean theorem. In a graded paper, students will create a right triangle and will label two shorter sides A and B, and the longer sides will be C. Students will then create squares around the side of the triangle and will label them A squared, B squared, and C squared. This activity will help students learn the relationship between right triangles and the Pythagorean theorem. And at the end of the class, students will write an exit slip so they can summarize what they learned about the Pythagorean theorem. Some of the student experiences to be provided. Reading out loud. This adaptation is designed to address students who have a visual or hearing ability. It would help students understand the material that is being delivered verbally. The graphic organizers, like the KWL chart, will highlight the most important parts of the lesson, and it will give students the ability to focus more on understanding key concepts during lecture. Visual aids, I will incorporate examples and drawings of what I expect from them and the assignment. Tactile experience, students will work in drawing, cutting, and coloring pieces to learn and prove the Pythagorean theorem. Materials, equipment, and resources needed: handouts, calculators, pencil, pen, color pencils, markers, poster boards, notebook, internet access for web quest, and paper. Standards addressed in this lesson: define trigonometric ratios and solve problems involving right triangles, applying trigonometry to general triangles, applying geometric concepts in modeling situations, use coordinates to prove simple geometric theorems algebraically, including distance formula, relate to Pythagorean theorem. Here's an example of the visual organizers that students will be using in my lesson, a KWL chart, where they discuss what they know about the subject, what they want to learn, and what they learn at the end of the lesson. Here is an example that I will work on the board for my students. We're trying to get C, which is the hypotenuse of the triangle. And then for the final activity, students will be working on discovering the Pythagorean theorem, where students will be making a small right triangle, making 8 copies of the small right triangle and cutting them out, and then drawing squares on each of the 3 sides of this right triangle. They will then arrange the figures to form 2 identical large squares. This will show students the relationship between a squared, b squared, and c squared in the Pythagorean theorem. Hello, good morning class. I hope you guys are having a good day because today we're going to be talking about a really important subject, the Pythagorean theorem. So what I need you guys to do right now is to get your KWL charts, which look like this, and I want you to fill out the first and the second column. So I want you to write down what you know about the Pythagorean theorem, what you want to learn about the Pythagorean theorem, and once we are done with our lesson or our unit, you'll go ahead and write down what you learned about the Pythagorean theorem. Now, by raise of hands, can someone tell me something about the Pythagorean theorem? How can it be used? Pikachu? Yes, the Pythagorean theorem can be used in construction, right? If you're building a house and you're getting the measurements for the slope of the roof, you can definitely use that. Let's see. Another example, please. Charts art. Yes, you can also use the Pythagorean theorem to get distances from point A to point B, right? So if you have a right triangle between distances, you can definitely get the distance between point A and point B by using the Pythagorean theorem. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys an example of the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to go ahead and write down the triangle, how to label it, so we can be able to figure out the Pythagorean theorem. Okay? Alright class, so the first thing that we need to do when we learn the Pythagorean theorem, we need to be able to know how to label a right triangle. So I have my right triangle right here, right? And we know that this is the right triangle Y class. Right, we need to make sure that we have this to make sure it's a right triangle. That demonstrates that it's a perfect 90-degree angle. Alright, so what we need to do now is we need to level our sides. We have A, B, and C. Now, does anyone know how to label these? Let's see, Bulbasaurus. Yes, so this right here, it's called a leg, right? For A, B, they're both legs of the triangle. Now, can anyone tell me what this is called right here? Let's see, I don't know, Squirtle. Yes, this right here is the hypotenuse. That's a hypotenuse. So, in order for us to solve a right triangle, we need to know that when you have the square of A plus the square of B, it'll equal this right here. It'll equal C squared. And we can use that to figure out the hypotenuse when we don't have the hypotenuse, or we can use it to figure out one of the legs we're provided with the hypotenuse and one of the legs. So now, alright class, now let's work on the following example. We have a triangle that has a leg that measures 5 meters, a leg that measures 12 meters, and we're asked to find the C, which is the hypotenuse. So, first step is to write the formula for the Pythagorean theorem. So, class, can you guys help me with that? Alright, so what's my first letter? Right. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? So then, to solve this right triangle and find C, what would I put for A? let's see, mouth. Yes. A will be 5 squared, right? What about for B? Let's see. Pikachu. Right. For B we have 12. And since we don't know C, we can use C squared. Now, what we need to do now is solve for these numbers. What's 5 squared? That's right, 25. What's 12 squared? Alright, it's 144. And that will equal C squared. So now what we need to do is add these two numbers so we can get what C squared is. So when we add them, it'd be 169 equals C squared. Now, are we done here? No, right? Why? Because we want to get C. This is C squared. So how can we get C by itself? Well, it's already by itself, but how can we simplify that? Yes, by obtaining the square root. So if I have C squared equals 169, all I need to do is get the square root of both sides. Square root of C squared equals C. Square root of 169 equals 13. And that is your answer. So let's move on to the following example. And once we're done with our example, we're going to talk about a Pythagorean theorem web quest that you guys will be doing. That will help you guys learn more about the Pythagorean theorem and where it originated from. It'll give you practice so you guys can master the Pythagorean theorem. Alright, this was my lesson plan for math on the Pythagorean theorem. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for watching.